Welcome to this celebration of the life of Michael McKee. My name is Eric Stenzel. I had the privilege of sharing in Michael McKee's life for over 33 years. We met at a Leap Day party in 1992 and found an instant bond, partly because we had both lost our first life partners to AIDS and to the same primary infection, cryptosporidium. We talked late into the evening until he said he had to go home because he needed to take his mother-in-law shopping the next day. I was thrown for a loop until he explained that he meant the mother of his late partner. That says two important things about Michael. First, it shows that he was always ahead of the curve, appropriating words like husband and mother-in-law long before we became legally entitled to them, as a matter-of-fact way of describing his relationships. I discovered only in talking to his brother after Michael's death that he had been out to his family since the 1950s. But it also reveals his steadfast commitment to his family and friends. When his late partner, Louis, was hospitalized, Michael moved into his room at the hospital until the end. Then, and for years to come, Michael visited Louis' mother, Mary, on Staten Island every weekend to take her shopping and to doctor's appointments. I was quickly brought into the extended family, and we took Mary on trips upstate to Texas and Minnesota to see our families, and twice to Italy to visit her relatives in Bardi. He delighted in mixing our family and friends with Mary's family and friends at holiday feasts and cookouts at her house every year until her death in 2009. The combination of fearless trailblazing and joy in bringing people, disparate people, together made him a wonderful organizer. After a few incidents of aphasia a year ago, we discovered that he had a tumor affecting the language center of his brain. Even so, he kept on organizing. Faced with rumors that the Tenants PAC fundraiser honoring Sam Himmelstein would be canceled because he couldn't go, Michael immediately put together an email list of contacts, over 400, to update them on his condition while urging them to attend the event. Then, realizing he would not be able to go to Albany to lobby during the legislative session, he wrote and published weekly manifestos on the politics and history of the tenants' rights movement until the disease took away his ability to write and speak freely. Although Michael lost the ability to express himself, he was still able to experience the world around him. Over the summer, we've traveled to visit friends and family in Europe and the US, attending concerts and taking in botanical gardens. He took great pleasure in the news of Zoran Mamdani's victory in the primary. And back home in New York, he recognized and greeted friends and allies in the political fight that shaped his life. When it became evident that he would not make it to his 86th birthday, he was able to say memorial and confirmed to me that the event should be a memorial, celebration, and fundraiser for Tenants PAC. And that's why you're here. In the days before his death, he said, "I need to write." He had more to contribute after a lifetime of activism, but it was not to be. Now it is up to you, the community of activists and organizers he trained and the public servants he supported, to build upon his legacy by speaking, writing, and organizing tenants in the fight for housing justice. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. This is an incredible scene. Just so moved by the number of people here and the response that we've gotten this week, in the past few weeks. Countless emails, each one with a different story of how Michael saved their home, how he passed a bill, how he talked to some agency on their behalf. Decades worth of incredible stories that have just been so inspiring and have a way of making you feel both small and also encouraged. Like he was working on each of us. Anybody who knows him, he was teaching you. You may not have known that, but he was teaching you. But welcome. We're very happy to have you here. My name is Esteban Jaron. I'm the political director of Tenants PAC, and for the past year have been trying to sort out the insane number of things that Michael was doing that surpass what any single human being could possibly do. I'm still constantly amazed on a daily basis of what I'm finding that Michael had his hands in. So we're here to celebrate. This is his birthday. It is his 86th birthday. Let's give it a round of applause. Yes, yes. Michael had been retired for, what, 20 years at this point? Something? So, like, yeah, so it's retired, right, exactly, retired from what? So I want to welcome Chuck also to come up here. We're going to be sort of emceeing, and this is a very informal gathering of friends, so if there's something you want to shout out at any point, this is the place to do it. We're good with that. But welcome. We're very excited to have you. And I will say that, at least in my time at Tenants PAC, which has been 10 years, we've not come close to this level of fundraising ever. We have surpassed any goals that we had, and I'll have a number for you by the end, but well done. Really well done.
Good evening. This is a memorial. It's a celebration, but it's also an organizing opportunity. So when the loft tenants started getting organized, we didn't know each other, so to get a read of the room, we'd ask people to simply raise their hands if a question applies to them. So let's start. Raise your hand if you're in the room. Good. This is how we weed out the people who just aren't going to cooperate. Raise your hand if you're a tenant. Raise your hand if you're a member of Met Council. Raise your hand if you've ever been sued for $40 million. And here I thought Michael was going to be the only one able to make that claim, but I see. That's great. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce one of my very favorite people, New York State Senator Liz Krueger, Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Chuck.
Your Excellency.
Hi, everyone. So I have been a state senator for almost 24 years. And I did raise my hand about being sued for $40 million, but I was actually thinking, well, actually, when I get sued as a legislator, Tis James has to represent me. So it doesn't really sweat. I don't sweat it at all, because I know she's going to do fine for the people of New York State, for the legislature, which we do get sued, and obviously for herself when insane people attempt to accuse her of ridiculous things. So I'm so proud to be serving with her as our Attorney General. And also for Chuck, when I became a senator, I got an office in a building in Midtown in my district, and suddenly there's Chuck saying, hello, I work in this building too, we have to get to work together. So it was like, of course he works in the same building, right? And then he had conference room space, and I didn't, so I would borrow their conference room space for meetings because I was a minority senator, and Joe Bruno had explained I wasn't sticking around long enough to even deserve office space because he was going to get rid of me fast. So thank you very much, Chuck, for coming to my rescue right away as a brand new senator. And I think something that we all have in common, since we knew Michael, and let's admit it, we loved Michael, But each of us can have our own stories of how we had knockdown, drag-out fights with him at various points in our life, and how we never did enough because we couldn't get as far as he wanted us to. We knew that. He was clear. He was like, if you'd only done this, Liz. I know, Michael, but I'm going to do better next time. We're going to go further. We really need to take the majority. And he was there day in, day out in my life before I ever even imagined running for office, when I was doing anti-poverty work. And we were actually working we were both, what's the word I want? When you're legal aid is suing, and they need some kind of expert witness. And so Michael and I ended up being expert witness in a number of cases that legal aid brought relating to housing and food issues. And so it would be late at night practicing the questions that we might get in court over and over again. And then I also learned very early on in my relationship with Michael about his history with the illness AIDS, of course, that Eric already talked about a bit, and what it meant. And we knew each other quite well in the 80s when my own brother was dying of AIDS. And Michael and I had many conversations about what was going on and the failures of government and what we needed to do and what we all tried to do. And then, of course, when I was a legislator and we finally did break that barrier and allow Eric and he to become legally married spouses, and how important that was to so many people in New York and how wonderful it was. It was just all these interconnections. And Michael brought his expertise, his passion, his organizing ability, and his refusal to give up to each and every issue we ever worked on together. And I said this, I think, at the funeral, so I'll just repeat it now. I actually think when we got Michael, they broke the mold. There's not really other Michaels. We need other Michaels. We need young generations of people to continue the fight and to fight even harder and with more skill, because now we have even scarier things to deal with in this country. But it was really like, I don't know, because I didn't get to know Michael's family the way Eric described, and so I just always been curious, like, what made him who he was, right? Because he was so unique. And I still talk about him in present tense. So if you're listening, Michael, you should be really proud of Eric and his organizing skills. And I know you're saying, see, I told you all you had to do a fundraiser for Tenant Pack. And he's probably saying, and if you wanted to do this every year for my birthday, as a reminder, that would be also okay. That would be fine, that we could do this every year as a reminder of who Michael was and how much he brought to housing, to advocacy on healthcare, on LGBTQ issues, on so many other things. And we probably wouldn't be living in the same city, having the same lives, if it was not for the work of Michael and the importance of never forgetting the work he did. And I think I mentioned to Eric the day of the funeral, but he hopefully didn't remember, that we really need to figure out how to get somebody to turn his papers into some archive so that others can see, read, remember, and learn from the models that were so effectively used in the city of New York and in the state of New York because of Michael McKee. So just everyone, thank you for the work you're doing every day to make this a better place. And while it can get dark out there, literally and figuratively, we're gonna win. We're gonna win. Thank you.
In addition to the folks who are going to be speaking, we have some other elected officials, I'm told. I saw Jamani Williams. Somewhere. I'm told Dan Garodnick is here. Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado. And Harvey Epstein. Did I leave anybody out? Okay. Now we're going to have a technological leap of faith and have our first video presentation, City Council Member Eric Botcher.
Hi everyone, Eric Botcher, City Council Member for District 3 on the west side of Manhattan. I will never forget the first time I had to call Michael. I had just started as Corey Johnson's Chief of Staff, and boy was I nervous, because this was a really serious guy, a legendary guy. And he was a serious guy, especially at first, but I would never have been able to predict that he would not only become a mentor of mine, taking me to get arrested for the first time in my life, teaching me so much about activism, but also becoming a friend and a source of strength for me in my life, taking me to the Glimmerglass Opera Festival for my first time. I mean, teaching me so many things about life and doing it with joy. I will consider myself so lucky if I'm able to have even a fraction of the impact on the world that Michael McKee has had. This is someone who has helped transform the lives of millions of tenants, vast majority of whom will never know his name, but he helped save their homes. In fact, he saved their homes. And how lucky will any of us be if we're able to have that kind of impact in the world? Michael, thank you for everything. Rest in peace. Eric, thank you for everything, for all the love and the love that you and Michael shared for so many years and all your contributions to the movement. And thank you, everyone out there, for everything that you have done and are doing. Rest in peace, Michael.
All right. Next up, we are going to have one of Michael's favorite legislators who I hear was, Michael liked to go up to the district and do door knocking for, I'm talking about Gustavo Rivera, one of our tenant champions, who's also an amazing singer, by the way. He did a fundraiser for us. If you were not there, we have a video of it. Solicit it because you want to see it. It's brilliant. So if, oh, there he is. Hello. Welcome, Gustavo Rivera, State Senator.
Good evening, everyone. So yes, there was just a couple of weeks ago, I turned 50, and I did do a party, and I did sing at it. And I mention that only because it's, as one gets older, right? 50 is one of those moments, like when you're 20-something, and there might be like a couple of 20-somethings, you don't think about the time when you're going to be 50, and then you're there. And then you think about the fact that 6 years before I was, but even on this, a twinkle in my daddy's eye, Mike McKee was already doing organizing. The fact that through a situation that happened to him, that, by the way, the booklet, whomever prepared it, I just was reading the first couple of pages. And certainly the story of how, and I'm sure that everyone, if you haven't seen it, you should, how he became an organizer, kind of almost by accident. It was something that was bothering him in his house, and he just figured, I got to do something about this. And through doing something about it just for himself, he realized that he could do something for everyone who lived in the building. And ultimately, as we have seen throughout his entire life, that he could continue that work to do something that, as was mentioned earlier, has impacted all of us, has impacted the entire state. Now, I've been in the Senate for 15 years, which is also another crazy number when I think about it. And I got here by defeating a guy who was, as I like to tell people, first of all, folks, a lot of folks don't even remember his name in my district, which is great. But and when they asked me, like, who is it that you defeated 15 years ago? I said, well, it's a guy that after I defeated him, then served 6 years in federal prison for stealing public money from a Medicaid clinic that he owned in the South Bronx. Said it so much, it kind of comes out just like that. But the reason why I mention that is because I was reminded by some folks in the tennis pack, the reason why, and I'm glad to hear that I was one of his favorites. He's certainly one of mine. Was because the guy who did all those things and then went away to prison also was holding back so much housing legislation. He was making a mint off of it. He didn't particularly care about the people that he represented or anybody in the state. And so through a lot of things happened, but I ultimately decided to run, and I did, and I won. And a big part of that was having people from all over the state, and certainly many, many hundreds that the Tenants PAC actually organized to go and knock on doors in my district to talk to my community about who I was. And then after I won, then we got to really know each other. And I know that there was somebody who referred to him just a few years ago as Housing Grandpa. I love that, Housing Grandpa, because and the thing that I will always remember about him, I mean, there's a lot of stories I can tell, but I will just say that regardless of what story you can tell, there's a couple of things that are at the core of it. Certainly the knowledge. This is somebody who was encyclopedic, and certainly as it relates to housing policy, because he probably wrote most of it. There's that. The only other dude I can think about is, like, you all know Dick Gottfried? So Dick Gottfried was the dude that knows everything about health policy, and then Mike McKee was the guy that knows everything about housing policy, because they both wrote it, both of them. So there's that. Number one, the fact that he knew all this stuff so well, the strategic sense of how the things can be achieved, how we can actually do these things, how we can put these things together. But at the core of all of it, and this is why I'm so glad that if you read his obituary in the Times, it ended by reminding us that he did all of this with joy, that he was joyful. And that's one thing that even in the darkest of times, there was always something about him. Joy is one way to describe him, and also he was kind of imp-like sometimes. Even as the housing grandpa, there was always something playful about him. And I will remember him for my entire life in public service, because he taught me so much, and because he fought for so long. And again, he started it 6 years before I was born, and he did it right up until the end, and all of it, he did it with joy. So I'm thankful for you, Michael. Thank you for everything that you've given us. Thank you for allowing us to know you and to work with you and to fight with you. And we're gonna take that impish smile of yours that you see so well in the front of that thing. I'm gonna keep that, I'm gonna frame that bastard, because I just want to be reminded of it whenever in the darkest times I will look at that impish smile, and I said, just keep fighting, because as Liz said, we gonna win. Thank you.
Once more, we turn to the wonders of technology. It turns out the Assembly Democrats had the gall to have a special meeting on Michael McKee's birthday, which means that Assembly Housing Committee Chair Linda Rosenthal cannot be with us in person. So now I know where to look.
Hi, I'm Linda Rosenthal, the Assembly member representing the Upper West Side and parts of Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan, and I'm also the chair of the Assembly Housing Committee. So sorry I cannot be with you to celebrate Michael McKee on what would have been his 86th birthday because of an Assembly retreat I must attend. Before I met him, Michael was a mythic figure in my mind, a sage authority, an expert on everything having to do with housing, who was a bit intimidating. Of course, once I got to know him, I realized that he indeed was a sage authority, a housing expert, but also a warm, gentle man who cared deeply about issues and people. I enjoyed nothing better than hearing Michael tell the behind-the-scenes stories of how housing laws came together in Albany, who in secret betrayed us, and who was a hero. He was a great historian of the movement and, of course, a key character in the movement. His spirit of never giving up permeated all his endeavors. I knew him best through his housing work, but I know he devoted himself to many other causes. He was the conscience of the tenant movement. The RGB reform bill that we worked on, closing demolition and substantial rehab loopholes were things that we looked forward to working on together. Prescient he was, and now landlords are suing New York State on those very issues. But housing wasn't Michael's only talent. For those who may not know, he was also a stellar tour guide and personal map, which I found out during our trip to Vienna to look at social housing. He made sure to look after me there, knowing I am directionally and geographically challenged. So he'd walk me back to my hotel to make sure I got back okay. And that's just who Michael was, a sensitive, caring, reliable soul. That also applied to the dog who pulled him the wrong way, causing him injuries, but he loved him anyway. It's only natural that someone as truly kind and marvelous as Michael would find someone equally as wonderful, and he found a devoted husband in Eric. And when he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, he valiantly continued on, getting treatment and living his life while making sure others would pick up his mantle. I will miss him greatly. I already do. We will never see his like again.
Oh, that was beautiful. And so are you. Hi, everyone. You're beautiful, too. Hi, everyone. I'm Marina Metalios, and I am an original Tenant PAC board member who was very lucky in 1997, when Michael founded Tenant PAC, to be invited to be part of the initial board. We, the tenants, had just gotten clobbered in the rent law renewal of 1997. Michael was not gloomy. He knew that we needed some kind of ballot box focused tenant action entity to pull us in and to counter the power of the landlords. Now, I felt fortunate because by that time in 1997, I'd already been in Michael's orbit for about a decade. I did not know that my education in McKee University was about to take off. Under Michael's guidance, the Tenants PAC board started canvassing across New York State. And we canvassed from Greenburgh in Westchester County to Greene County. I didn't know we had a Greene County before Michael introduced me. We door knocked from North Fork to the North Country, engaging with tenants, helping them focus to vote as tenants. Now, McKee University classes were challenging, but they were also fun. We had fun when we door knocked for Andrea Stewart Cousins in Yonkers. And then we took the train, Metro North, back down the Hudson and saw the beautiful river. It was fun. We had fun when we door knocked for Gustavo Rivera in his very hilly district. I don't remember ever getting a turf that didn't have hills in it. We had fun when we helped Liz Kruger best Roy Goodman. Woo! We had fun when we piled into Shelley Silver's office in Albany to try and get a conversation with the man himself. We had fun when we postered in my neighborhood in Stuytown for Tish James. Woo! And we even had fun sleeping on 3rd Avenue in front of Governor Andrew Cuomo's office, trying to get him to do something about the rent laws. Hello? 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 And Harvey got us out of jail, indeed. Now, this fun was a reflection of Michael's optimism and Michael's belief in the power of the collective, in the power of us. And that, Michael's optimism, you've heard a little bit about it already this evening, and the fact that he believed deeply in what tenants can accomplish together, fuels Tenants PAC work going forward. As we look forward, Tenants PAC will be a part of getting the REST Act passed so that our renter neighbors in uptown states, uptown municipalities and counties can get a little more protected. Tenants PAC is also going to be involved seeding and strengthening rent guidelines boards across New York State. Michael dearly desired that we move toward some form of universal rent control in New York. We're going to work on that. And Michael was also very animated by the idea of creating true public social housing, controlled by the tenants. Now, some of you may say, you are swinging for the trees. Goddamn right. That is a reflection of Michael's optimism. That's a lesson of McKee University. We are here because of that legacy. And we are also here because of your generosity to Tenants PAC. So I thank you, all of you. At the risk of being potentially ingracious, I invite you to consider becoming a monthly donor, like many board members, including myself, are, because we get the change that we fight for, and we get the change that we dream of, and we also get the change that we pay for. There is a QR code in the pamphlet. And before I close, a word of thanks or two to Eric. Eric, thank you for caring for Michael, because it is how he cared for us. Thank you deeply, and thank you for sharing him. And to Michael, miss you so much, love you so much. Thank you for inspiring us. Michael, thank you for believing in the power of the collective, in the power of us, of all of us. I say, Michael McKee, presente. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Manhattan Borough President-elect, Brad Hoylman-Siegel, who was also my state senator. So I surrender him to Manhattan Borough Presidenthood only because he's still going to be representing me and who has been great for tenants.
Hello, everyone. I'm State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel, representing the west side of Manhattan, from Christopher Street at the foot of the historic Stonewall Inn, birthplace of our contemporary LGBTQ human rights movement, all the way up to West 103rd Street, or as I like to think of it, from the gay bars to Zay bars. And as of January 1, I can't say that any longer because I'll be representing the entirety of Manhattan as Manhattan Borough President. I'm so sad I can't be with you tonight as we celebrate Michael McKee in the true tenant fashion, raising some money on behalf of Tenants PAC, the organization he started and loved so dearly. Michael was the person who first got me active in the tenant movement back in 2000. I joined the Tenants and Neighbors Board of Directors under Michael, and soon thereafter was helping his team down in Lower Manhattan deal with the fallout of 9/11. Of course, I knew who Michael was at that point, although he had no idea who I was. I had seen him lead tenant rallies, travel to Albany, and wave those very artful hand-painted signs that read, "Tenants Vote." I was in admiration of how he led, how he organized, how he was an authority on issues that resonate so powerfully even with us today: affordability, the cost of rent, fighting bad landlords, and keeping tenants in their homes. My husband and I became friends with Michael and his lovely husband, Eric, and frankly, they were good role models for David and me on balancing and keeping a relationship with a public-facing job. Even though Michael isn't with us today, I'm so glad he got to see the culmination of his work when in 2019 we took down the Republican Senate and the IDC and passed our historic rent laws. That was largely Michael's work. He activated the tenants, piled them on buses, and yes, got more than a few people arrested in the process, including me. In fact, raise your hand if Michael McKee ever got you arrested. I see you. Seriously, what most inspired me about Michael is that he was a straight shooter, never sugarcoating the truth. And at the same time, he was a decent, caring individual, someone who always had time for you, even if you were a young upstart who barely knew anything, as I was when I first met him more than 25 years ago. Michael has inspired a whole new generation of political activists around tenant issues. With his passing, we can all rest assured that his activism will live on. Thank you very much.
The videos worked out well, right? That's kind of nice. There was apparently some sort of a gay dinner in DC, and so all of our gay legislators could not make it today, but they found a way. So it is my pleasure to introduce, we've already given a hand of applause, but Tish is from my district. In Crown Heights, was the council member for the 35th district, and you know, been pretty busy lately, real busy. But also, I have to say the work that the Crown Heights Tenant Union has done, for example, with the eviction defense at 964 Park, Tish's office stepped in, she showed up. So she's showing up in DC and against the most powerful people in the world, and she's also showing up for tenants. I think that's something to be commended. Tish also headlined several of our fundraisers, particularly the lawyer fundraisers, which have always been super well attended, and has always been gracious to do it. So I'm really excited to have her here, and would love to invite her to come up and speak.
Thank you. 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 Please be seated. Yes. So I wasn't invited to the gay party or to the Assembly's conference or whatever, retreat or whatever they're having. So I showed up. I thought about Michael today for 4 reasons. I thought about Michael when we fought back against this administration's refusal to fund National Institute of Health. NIH is an institute that has done research to find a cure for brain cancer, Parkinson's, and heart disease. And the federal administration, as you know, cut those grants, and we fought back. I thought about Michael today as we fought back against another unlawful, unconstitutional executive order which does not have the force of law, which says, New York, you're going to lose grant money if you continue to house undocumented individuals who are homeless. As we responded to that illegal and awful and painful executive order, I thought about Michael. I thought about Michael today as we sit in this beautiful church and as I recognize that this is a beautiful edifice that embraces all of us, each and every one of us, at a time when we are facing so many challenges and trying to mitigate the harms from Washington, D.C. I thought about Michael in this space, and I feel his spirit. And as long as we speak his name, Michael will never die. So we've got to continue to speak his name and say his name as we join tonight to celebrate the life and the legacy and the extraordinary spirit of Michael McKee, a giant of New York, a champion for tenants, and a man whose courage reshaped the lives of countless families across our state. As I traveled upstate a few days ago to organize individuals who live in manufactured homes in upstate New York, they're looking at horrific conditions in upstate New York and who feel that they're being ignored and neglected in upstate New York because they cannot get any relief in the local courts. And they believe that all of the focus is on New York City. And what those residents and those tenants say, what about us? We want stability too. And so I want all of you to know in Tenants Pact, we need to focus on upstate New York, particularly at a time when they walk into court, the first question that is asked of them is, have you paid your rent? Not about the conditions. And those that don't speak a language other than English, they don't provide them with interpreters. And most of the judges in upstate New York, some of them are not even attorneys. I thought about Michael when I heard from the tenants one after another about what they are dealing with in upstate New York, and I said, we've got to do better. You see, Michael was an organizer, strategist, historian of our housing laws, a relentless advocate, a mentor, and a beloved husband and brother and friend. And in a career stretching more than 50 years, Michael understood that safe, stable, affordable housing is a fundamental human right. And if you believe that, you should make some noise. That sleeping on our streets or sleeping on subway platforms or on subway grates here in the city and even in upstate New York is not humane and is not consistent with our values as a nation and as a state. And you see, Michael devoted his entire life to making that right to housing real for millions of individuals. He built organizations that endure to the day. The Metropolitan Council on Housing, the New York State Tenants and Neighbors Coalition, the School for Organizers, and Tenants Pact. He trained generations of activists and lawyers and elected officials and everyday New Yorkers who simply wanted to keep a roof over their heads, as we are joined by the great controller of the city of New York, Brad Lander. Brad, if Michael ever got you arrested, could you raise your hand? There you go. Just wanted to make you feel included. You see, Michael's fingerprints are on every major housing victory in New York of the last century, and his legacy extends beyond his policy accomplishments. Because at a time when this administration, the federal administration, in opposing all of the grants that we receive to New York State, it's usually based on the fact that they refuse to provide New York grants if you support DEI, if you support undocumented immigrants, and if you support particularly the trans community, because they are being scapegoated right now by the federal government. Michael's legacy is a life he built with Eric, a love story full of devotion and commitment and dedication, humor, resilience, and sometimes some arguments. It is in the community he nurtured, the elders that he cared for, the friends he welcomed, the hope that he inspired, and the optimism he sustained, even in some of the toughest and the hardest fights, and even in the darkest of moments. And all of the elected officials that he trained, that he elevated, that he supported, and even those that he disdained, and there were many of those. We will always remember Michael. He showed us that organizing is an act of love, and that progress is only possible because people like Michael refuse to give up. And at this darkest of times in our nation, we cannot give up, give in. My public career is made possible by trailblazers like him because he believed in this black girl from Brooklyn with a loud voice, but more importantly, with compassion, and whose family once recognized what it was like to be evicted and to face homelessness. And so, yeah, we bonded. We bonded over some of my stories and my experience. And so I promise that the fight he waged for fairness, for dignity, for a state where people can live without suffering the fear and indignity of losing their home will continue, both downstate and upstate. To Eric, to his brothers, to his many colleagues and friends, thank you for sharing him with us. And because we are in a house of faith, let us find comfort in the Gospel of Matthew. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord. May Michael rest in peace, and may we honor him by carrying his work forward and keeping his legacy alive by speaking his name, but more importantly, fighting to ensure that every family, every person, every individual whose name you know or do not know, that they have a home where they can breathe easy, where they can raise their children, and where they can build a life simply of peace. Rest in peace, Michael. The struggle continues. Thank you.
I wanted to take just a moment to, tell you a little bit about how this happened. Eric mentioned that Michael made his wishes known. It normally took us about 3 months to plan a fundraiser. Michael knew that he was giving us 4 weeks. He knew what that would entail, and he knew that the board would need to step up our game to be able to do that. It has been a challenge. It has been a beautiful thing to see the people that have written, that have been a part of this. But I really want to recognize my fellow board members because you guys have done an amazing job. If you could stand, please, and raise your hand. Any of the Tenants PAC board members? Yeah, there we go. Excellent. And also want to recognize that we have new board members, and now that you speak of upstate, we have 2 new board members from upstate, Kenyon Ryan and Ali Bix. Say hello. There we go. And I think Anderson, you're here, right? Anderson? We got an Anderson? Aha, there he is. This is an incredible group of people that I have been so privileged to work with over the past 10 plus years. Michael was very adamant in the past year about growing the board, including more folks from upstate, including more folks from places that were not represented, people who don't normally have a seat at the table, people who are tenant leaders, who don't necessarily make any money doing this, but are dedicated and are willing to do the work and want to do the work. And so I'm super excited at the way that this is growing. He had a list. You might be on it. We'll be talking to you. We also have Winsome. Winsome, where are you? There she is. Winsome is a new board member as well. A direct Michael recruit as well. So he was doing the work up until the end, and that is something that we take with us. We take it very seriously. We take your support very seriously. We, as far as I can tell, have raised double what we have ever raised in a fundraiser ever before. And I'm so thrilled to be able to take whatever it was that Michael gave us, and it's for each of us, it's a different thing. I mean, for me, it's been a life-changing experience to be the person that Michael calls for, primarily for like tech stuff, honestly. It's mostly like, how do I use a Google Doc? Anybody in HJ4A knows that Michael does not do Google Docs, right? He sends you a version 0.7 or 0.8 of a document. So we try to facilitate that transition. But Michael was, and I've told a few folks about this tonight, I am not sure how it's humanly possible to do all of the things that he was doing. Every day I come across something, oh, you were talking to this group of tenants in this building, and you were like, it's insane. It is really like a superhuman feat that right now is taking at least 4 or 5 people working constantly just to keep up, and we're barely keeping up, but we're doing it. So I hope that you will continue to put your trust in us. Michael was very, very particular about the way that he handled his board. I inherited his planner. It has all the board members' birthdays that he made sure that he called. It has anyone who's notable who might want a birthday message from Michael. Michael is the person that invited you to his home, invited you into his space. A lot of you have been there, and you were more than likely going to be rubbing shoulders with some tenant he just met yesterday, and a legislator who's really important to this year's rent laws. Like it's just an amazing group of people, but just so unassuming. And I think maybe part of like if you know Michael from Albany, you might have a different perspective of Michael, because Michael was a very tough character when it came down to doing business, right? But it's so surprising to me to run into people like that. And then also like Michael and I shared a particular, and I haven't really talked about this very much. I haven't even really talked to Eric about it, but we both came from the South. We were gay men that grew up in the South, and he had an understanding of that was so far beyond what anybody else has, like in my life, has been able to understand. He understood what it was to lose your faith. He understood what it was to be a gay man in a place that didn't want you and charting a new life for yourself. It seems like a common story, but there's really not a lot of us out there, especially in New York, which is a great thing. It's a great thing that that's not the case for a lot of people now. But I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss being able to say things to him that I don't know that I could tell anybody else. And finally, everyone has said it up until now, but the way that Eric has handled this past year, the way that he stepped up for this, you were probably contacted by him. Nobody did more work for this fundraiser than Eric did, and provided a sort of continuity that we really needed. We really needed somebody that knew everybody that Michael knew, and that could make the calls, could call the unions, could call the people that we haven't interacted with. extraordinary. And the thing that I got from board members and that I felt myself was in those last, I think it was maybe like a week before he passed, that we had lunch on a Sunday with Dorca and Marina and my husband Sean. And okay, go ahead and stand up, Sean. I have to do it. There you go. That's Sean, guys. That's my husband. Thank you. He knew I was going to do that. We had lunch and we helped him fill out his ballot. He was so excited to do it. We had a discussion about the ballot measures, which were so controversial. I have not seen him in months take so much interest. He was paying attention. He knew what was going on. There was like the spark was in there, and like he was really into it. Like near the end, he was sleeping a lot. You know, that's kind of what happens with a brain tumor. But man, those few hours, he was in it. He wanted to know what we thought about the ballot measures. He wanted to know what we were going to do. You know, who was going to canvass for Zoran the next week, which his husband did actually. Eric did get out there and canvass, like, yeah, continuing the work. And in fact, was interviewed by 3 different news stations at that party afterwards, like just stepping right up. And I think that it's not just that we have like this tremendous resource, but we have a piece of Michael that is so deeply felt in Eric. And I'm just so grateful for him. I'm so grateful to be your friend and to be able to be a part of this with you. This has been a beautiful process. It's not something that I've experienced before, and I've learned so much, and I just want to thank you for being who you are and for being who you were with Michael. He relied on you for so many things, and we want to be there for you now. So, in fact, actually, you being there for us, he just had us over for dinner and like fed us, my husband and I, and like you know. So, I'm excited to continue this work. I want folks to know that we are going to be honoring Michael in whatever ways that we can. I love the birthday fundraiser idea, Liz. That is a great one. We've talked about a school of organizers or school for organizers, some sort of a training series that we can do. I have my living room is packed right now with stacks of handwritten notes from Michael. One of them that's being auctioned, in fact, since we're going to talk about the auction, is a notebook that has Michael's handwritten notes, play-by-play, for November 9th, 2022, in Kingston, when the RGB, newly minted RGB, was about to vote for a 15% rent decrease, right? And it starts very unassuming, and it gets heated, and then it's extraordinary. And we have just boxes of all of these writings, just a treasure trove of things. Like I started to dabble a little bit. It's hard to do, you know, because it does make you miss him. He's funny, and he's all the things that he normally would be, and really, really sassy, like just incredibly, just like some petty things in there about some politicians that we might have to censor, at least for now. Yeah, he had opinions for sure, but yeah, there's an incredible treasure trove of things, and people have reached out. So like we're going to be putting that out. We're going to be continuing this legacy, and I just want to thank you all for being here. We are about. Oh, is that Helen? Say hello. I just realized I wish say hello to our. Yes, Helen was a former city council member. Yes, yeah, who I just saw at a Zoran rally like just a few weeks ago. So there you go. So we have an auction, and this auction is a really interesting one. We have basically buttons, T-shirts, and books. Some really, really hard to come by books, actually, that Michael had that Eric has very graciously put up for auction. You can step in when we finish here. We're going to be stepping in there for a reception. At exactly 7:30, which is in 26 minutes, the auction closes. So you want to put your bids in. There are all sorts of goodies in there. There's the backpack that he took to Albany with him, and he took traveling across Europe. There is buttons from the 60s and 70s. There is David Dinkins buttons. There's I think a bunch of like Giuliani like crossed out, like no Giuliani. A bunch of Lieutenant stuff. A bunch of like all the major fights that he was in. And And then finally, because Michael taught me well, I do want to tell you that you need to call your council member. Starting now, the council is advancing a bill to undo decades worth of work that we have done in stopping Airbnb from turning the entire city into short-term rentals. And it's a bad scene. They've gone around this process. We need your support. We need you to call your people. If you have a council member's number, now is the time to do it. I would be remiss. Michael helped pass Local Law 18, which was one of his strongest and most proud achievements, and we cannot let that be the way that this year goes out. They're doing it at the last stated meeting, so just putting that out there for anyone who knows somebody that they might call. The bill is 948A and 1107A. It's on the back of your, that's right, yeah. Tenants not tourists, if you flip it around, it tells you all the information. Eric, you want to come on up? I think Eric's going to introduce our singer. Yes. Oh, well. Where'd you go? There you go.
I just want to thank Eric for inviting us to play for you this evening and introduce my fellow musicians. Ronnie Ben-Hur on guitar, Kim Clark on bass, and Maria Marmaru on drums. So we'll do a tune right now by the great Brooks Bowman, East of the Sun, West of the Moon. I wish that we could live up in the sky, where we could find a place way up high, to live among the stars, the sun, the moon, just you and I. East of the sun and west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, dear, near to the sun in the day, near to the moon at night. We'll live in a lovely way, dear, living on love and pale moonlight, just you and I, forever and a day. Love will not die, we will keep it that way. Up among the stars we'll find a harmony of life to a lovely tune. East of the sun and west of the moon, dear. East of the sun and west of the moon. the sun and west of the moon. We'll build a dream house of love, dear. Near to the sun in the day, near to the moon at night. We'll live in a lovely way, dear. Living on love and pale moonlight, just you and I, forever and a day. Love will not die, we'll keep it that way. Up among the stars we'll find a harmony of life to a lovely tune. East of the sun and west of the moon, dear. East of the sun and west of the moon. Thank you. Thank you very much. You want to say something, or yeah, okay.
We're now about to start the reception. If anyone wanted to visit the columbarium, that's where the ashes are back there. And there's a book by the side if anyone wants to write anything, just so you know. But we're about to start the reception.
We're going to do one last thing. We have a request.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Hi. I know a lot of people didn't get to speak today, so I think we should collectively speak out and shout out for Michael. So when I say, who do we love? You say Michael. And we say, when do we love him? You say now and forever. You ready? Who do we love?
Michael!
When do we love him?
Now and forever.
Who do we love?
Michael!
When do we love him?
Now and forever.
Okay, thank you. Housing is a... You know this one? Housing is a... Thank you.
Excellent. So now we'll continue to play, but we invite you to the reception for refreshments, the auction, and everything else in the living room. Thank you so much. Drop me off in Harlem. Drop me off in Harlem.